What's going on, everyone? It is Chris Berry, and I want to share with you all the stuff that I'm learning as I go through the book DotCom Secrets by Russell Brunson. So the book itself, I'm currently around 90 pages in, just finished the section that goes over the attractive character, and I kind of just wanted to walk you guys through it as I went through it myself to just share the important pieces of everything. So I'm going to be kind of walking through here. I mean, for those of you who are not familiar with Russell Brunson I would highly recommend you check him out. He is definitely one of the key and pivotal figures in the entire internet marketing space. He's the founder of ClickFunnels, and in short, he has made a tremendous impact on the entire internet marketing community with his creation of ClickFunnels and just also his knowledge in business and everything along those lines. So if that wasn't enough, you can obviously look him up, but the praise for .com Secrets actually comes from a man that, if you don't know, you should also look up, Tony Robbins. And he says a simple process that any company can use to geometrically improve their traffic, conversion, and sales online. And he's talking about this book right here. So that's the praise for .com Secrets. As we look into, one thing that I always do whenever I start a new book is I like to get an understanding of all of the main points, what it is going to look like, and then also what I really should be looking to take away from it. It's ultimately beginning with the end in mind. There's a video that reminds me, I could maybe include it somewhere, a link here, or maybe in the description. But it's the video where it's a bunch of guys are passing around a basketball, and it asks you how many times the people passed around the basketball, and there's something that is odd or strange. I won't spoil it because I'll include it in the description. But there's something different that happens, and oftentimes we don't see things that we aren't looking for. What's my whole point in saying that? By me reading through the table of contents, getting an understanding of the main sections, main points, and ultimately the end goal of what I'm looking to get from this, it allows me to keep a keen eye out for that and therefore be able to grasp it, hopefully, better than if I didn't understand what I was looking for. So as I'm going through, I'll also put a little picture of this on the screen as I'm reading through it myself here. So the first section is all about sales funnel secrets, and that's actually where I am as of right now. So within the first section, there are 7 different secrets that he goes through. The very first one is secret formula, followed by hook, story, and offer. After that second one, we move on to 3, which is the value ladder. Number 4, attractive character. So as of right now, I am just finished up with secret number 4. So I finished the secret formula, hook, story, offer, value ladder, and the attractive character. So as we go ahead and we move into the very first section, which is, as you saw right here, it actually first starts off with a little bit of an introduction. It kind of goes into Russell's background, how he came across all these different things, what made him eventually get into the creation of ClickFunnels and writing this book and everything along those lines. But the very first section here is sales funnel secrets. So a lot of it is kind of just him giving his background and everything. He talks about how he made his very first ever funnel and kind of product, which was his potato gun, which is a pretty cool story that you'll learn. It's essentially him coming through, wanting to find a way to make money online, trying all these different things, and him and his friend ended up just making a potato gun themselves. And then he looked into it, he's like, oh my goodness, we just became experts, quote unquote, in making potato guns, and there's nobody else online that is sharing this information. So what they decided to do is they decided to go ahead and create this essentially product teaching people how to make potato guns, and they started making money, and that was kind of his realization, like, oh my goodness, I can actually make money online. So that is essentially majority of the very first chapter, or secret I should say. And then he continues to go over important points by I had built my first sales funnel, and by doing it, I was able to do 2 amazing things: give my customers a better experience and spend a lot more money to acquire a customer. This is kind of him just talking about his understanding of actually having their customers spend more money by increasing the value ladder, which is obviously something that he continues to talk about. For those of you who are not familiar, a value ladder are just different steps and products, in a sense, that eventually lead a person into the whole idea is to go and push them up into higher ends of the value ladder. Not every single person right off the bat is going to buy your $25,000 coaching program, which is the reason why you have a value ladder, to get people from the very beginning with bait, say $0, whatever it may be, and then you continue to graduate them up, giving them more value, and they in return give you more money along the way. So I know I'm kind of going all over the place, But within this very first one, he gives the background of his potato gun. He touches on a couple of points that he gets into deeper within the later chapters. He goes over what is a sales funnel, and he continues along, kind of, as I said, touching upon the secret formulas that he will then continue to expand into as he gets later into the book. So that right there is just kind of the introduction and very beginning before we go ahead and we get into those 4 secrets that I told you that I've covered thus far. Very first one is the secret formula. So throughout the entire book, Russell does have a tendency, and he even says it himself later on, he likes to go ahead and teach in parables, or in stories, you could say. So instead of just giving you some bland topic or telling you it's X, Y, and Z, he gives you a story or something that you can cling to in order to better understand it and remember it long term. And as we kind of hop into secret number 1, the secret formula, he has a couple of different questions that he poses. The very first question is, who is your dream customer? So he continues to go through it, expand upon who is your dream customer, getting very clear on who that customer is and why it's also important. Second question that he goes over is, where are your dream customers congregating? So ultimately, you've identified your dream customer, you've identified who they are, what they look like, their characteristics, and in turn, then you have to identify where are these people congregating. It's obviously leading into eventually traffic or advertising to them or getting in with them and things along those lines. But that is the second thing that he does, is he talks about where do your dream customers congregate. And then question number 3 is, what is the bait that you'll use to attract these customers? So for those of you who are not familiar, he uses the bait and he puts in parentheses next to bait, hook, story, and offer. So he's going to continue to elaborate further on the hook, the story, and the offer. But you can imagine he actually gives a little bit of a graphic to kind of go ahead and show it. I'm going to pull it up for you. And it's this right here. So you can see, and I'll even actually, I'll put a graphic on the screen so it's a little bit easier for you. But what he does is over here on the far left-hand side, he says who. Right, so that's the first question that he poses. Who is your dream customer? That's identifying the fish that you're going after in the pond. Then from there, you have to identify, in order to catch the fish, you first have to understand where are all these fish at. So that's also understanding the pond in a sense. And then your bait is physically, imagine you're fishing. You have to put some sort of bait on the fishing line in order to in turn attract that fish, or aka your dream customer, into you. So that's what he talks about inside of chapter 1. I could dive a lot deeper because obviously he takes a lot of really great points, but for the fact of brevity, I'll just kind of keep it quick and give you the main points. So those are the main things that he discusses in chapter 1. He discusses who is your dream customer, where do they congregate, and what is the bait that you can give them in order to attract them. So the very last thing we discussed inside of that secret 1 is the bait, which is what he exactly talks about and further discusses in section 2, secret 2, which is hook, story, and offer. So essentially within any single bait, there needs to be the 3 elements that I just described: the hook, the story, and the offer. So the hook is the physical thing that will get people to actually stop and listen to you, right? So that's the very first thing. After the hook comes the actual story. This is where you're actually going to be walking people through and kind of, in a sense, giving them some pieces of information or some story or some parable to where they are drawn in and they want to go ahead and continue learning more from you to some degree. And then lastly is the offer, which is actually where you're going to be giving them an offer of some degree. What Russell uses inside of the book is actually a really great example. His hook says, I just purchased this new iPhone for $600 last week. But in the next 10 minutes, someone here will be willing to give me at least $100,000 for this phone. So that right there was his hook that he used to get people in. He then continued to use his story to explain and to teach why that was the case. He goes through and explaining the value behind his phone. And I'll even kind of scoot on over here where he has a little bit of like a value stack, or stacking up all the offers, and I'll put this on the screen as well. But the offer stack, he talks about how he's purchased over $750,000 worth of courses, and all of those courses can be found directly on his phone. After that, he goes through his Voxer, where he has a direct line with him and his team. Talks about other apps that he has access to. That's worth another $150,000. And then from there, also his contact list that has very famous people and different people that you could do business with. that in turn could most likely assist you in your journey through your business, whatever it may be. Long story short, that entire thing right there is a story, right? So we got you hooked by saying, I just bought this last week for $600, but somebody in 10 minutes will give me $100,000 at least for this phone. So that's the hook. Goes into the story, explains why, and then lastly, the offer is who here would be willing to go ahead and pay me $100,000, and he goes auction style. It actually starts off at $600. He works his all the way up until $750,000, and at that point, he said anybody who's willing to pay that come up to the stage, and there's 3 people who came up to the stage that were willing to pay him $750,000. What's the moral of the story? He talks about the importance behind using the framework of hook, story, and offer in any sort of bait or anything really that you're doing, whether it be on your sales funnel, whether it be on email, whether it be on an advertisement, whatever it may be, you want to be using the hook, story, and offer framework. And that is everything that he covers in secret number 2. Secret number 3, after hook, story, and offer, Russell discusses the value ladder. So it was briefly touched upon before, but the value ladder is essentially the different products, and I'll actually put a graphic on the screen, but the different products that you're going to slowly have people enter on each one of the rungs. And the whole purpose of the value ladder is to get your customer to move on to the next step of the ladder. So as you can see on the graphic that's here on your screen, on the far left hand side you have value, and then on the bottom you have price. So ultimately, as you move further up and to the right, the product that you're upgrading them to becomes more valuable, and in turn also a higher price. So within this is actually a fairly long chapter. He goes very in depth on it. And one thing that he says at the very beginning of the chapter, he says, this is a quote from the book, "Whenever I start a new business or start working with someone on their business, the first thing I always do is map out the customer's value ladder. It helps give you a vision of how you plan on serving your dream customers and where you want to take them. It helps you figure out the real purpose for your company, the main goal or result that you are trying to help them achieve." So ultimately, and he actually says that goes on further to speak about your value ladder mission statement. So ultimately, within your company, you should have this one mission statement of the value ladder that you are seeking to get your customers to. So yes, maybe something is only $0 or $50, but ultimately it's all in the same mission to push them to become something. So what do I mean by that? He actually gives a couple of different examples. So he says, if I were a dentist, my value ladder mission statement would read something like this, and this is all quoted from the book. "We help families in our community to increase their confidence through creating a beautiful smile that they are proud to share." So that's a physical example. The framework that Russell uses in order to do it is he breaks it down like this. He says, we help, insert who, and I'm actually going to put a little graphic of this so you can see it, but we help, insert person, to blank, and this is where you insert the result you want them to achieve, through blank, which is through your new opportunity. So once again, the example I just gave, so we help blank to achieve blank through blank. So ultimately, here's the dentist one once again. We help families in our community to increase their confidence through creating a beautiful smile that they are proud to share. Another example he gives is with his own value ladder mission statement for ClickFunnels, which is we help visionary entrepreneurs to grow their companies through sales funnels. So that is what he kind of lays the foundation of the entire chapter. As we continue to go through, he highlights the importance of a value ladder. This is quote directly from the book. He says, your value ladder is your actual business plan. It shows how you're going to acquire your customers, where you will make money as the business owner, and the result you are going to help your dream customers achieve. If someone doesn't have an actual value ladder, they don't really have a business. They're just selling a product. So ultimately, Russell's trying to stress the importance that every single business needs a value ladder in order to better serve your customer and to better get them really what they're looking for. So that is the foundational principles of the chapter. And as we continue along, going through the rest of it, he gives a couple of different examples in various industries, from relationship coaching to his own value ladder within ClickFunnels. He goes through chiropractor and everything along those lines. and even talks about first focusing, and actually I'll even just give you this direct one. So to give you an kind of understanding of the importance, Russell's inner circle, I believe they pay at least $100,000, if not significantly more, to go ahead and work directly or be within his inner circle. So what he says here is, when someone joins my inner circle, I first have them sketch out what their value ladder will become. Then I will have them pick one level of the value ladder and commit to me that they will only focus on that one offer, that one funnel, until they've made it into the 2 Comma Club, meaning that they've made at least $1 million gross in that funnel. So what does all of that mean? So Russell, as he's going through, and I'll actually put it up here on the screen as I'm kind of looking at it right here, ultimately, he talks about how each one of the steps in the value ladder represents a different category. Your very bottom rung of the value ladder will include something that is free, some sort of bait, and within that, he discusses that as your lead funnel. As you continue up into a higher level product, which in turn is higher priced, he explains how there's different types of funnels that are needed to be used for all of these different ones. So what he's saying is, when he gets an inner circle person, a person that pays him $100,000 plus to work directly with him inside of his inner circle, his advice, this is important to remember, what he does, he has them write out their entire value ladder, but he says you have to commit to one until you've made $1 million with it. So obviously we could dive deeper in an understanding on all of that, but success leaves clues, just something that I'll leave you with, considering someone that paid him a significant amount of money and what he makes them do. So essentially a 24-page chapter, nothing crazy long, but I'm definitely condensing the information a little bit for you. One of the very last things that he leaves us with in secret number 3, which is the value ladder, is a truth by Dan Kennedy, and that truth, quote, by Dan Kennedy, is ultimately the business that can spend the most to acquire a customer wins. I'll repeat that one more time. Ultimately, the business that can spend the most to acquire a customer wins. So, I'll leave that with you. But what they're essentially saying is that if you can go ahead and increase the value of your customer and continue to spend more money in order to acquire it, that's how you win in business. And by the way, guys, everything I'm doing here, I am not necessarily the expert knowing all these different things. I am essentially documenting my own journey as I go through and I'm reading this book for a couple of different reasons. First of all, I'd like to share with you guys. Second of all, almost maybe in a selfish way, if you guys are familiar with the learning pyramid, I'll include a little picture popping up on the screen here. But in short, if you are, there's different like steps and percentages of average retention when learning. So when you actually teach other people, it significantly increases the retention of you understanding the information. So to me, it's like a double-edged, or killing 2 birds with 1 stone. I'm helping hopefully give some information to you guys. If you guys are enjoying this, if you could do me a favor and let me know, whether it be through a like, a comment, subscribing, just kind of letting me know that this is valuable to some degree. But that's the first part, and then the second part, it also helps me myself. So that's a little bit about kind of the background, and that is it for secret number 3, the value ladder. Okay, secret number 4, the attractive character. So as we continue along, just to kind of recap everything as we're going through it, I'm going to put it back up on the screen so you guys can see it as well. But as you look at it, secret number 1, the secret formula. He goes ahead and he talks about the entire formula and walking through everything. Then from there, which includes the who is your target customer, where do they congregate, and then in turn, what is the bait that you're giving them. That's secret number 1. As you continue along, he goes further into the bait. What is the bait? Every single bait should include 3 major things. I'm gonna pause. What is it? Think about it. So the 3 things within the bait: hook, story, and offer. Hook, that thing that's actually gonna get you hooked, capture your attention. Secondarily, the story. What is the story going to embody? It is going to embody some sort of lesson or some sort of, almost in a sense, selling that you're going to be doing to the other person. Then lastly is going to be becoming your offer, where you're physically going to be giving them the offer. So that's the second. Continue along is your value ladder. One of the biggest things for me, if a person does not have a value ladder, they are not an actual business. They're simply just selling a product. So ultimately, your value ladder allows you to, and also your value ladder mission statement gives a very clear direction of all of the products that you have in order to best serve your customer to get some degree of outcome, right? And remember those examples I gave you from the dentist and also the ClickFunnels one. So that is what we've gone through so far. As we continue along, we are now into secret number 4. If you're following along in the book, we're actually now at page 71. So I took you through 71 pages plus a couple of pages inside of the introduction in just a couple of minutes. And secret number 4, what we have here is the attractive character. So the way, actually the very first sentence that Russell puts inside of this chapter, I'm just going to read straight to you. This is all quoted directly from the book .com Secrets by Russell Brunson. This is in a quotation, so it's like a quote that he's hearing. I want to introduce you to our next speaker. He has a successful business online, making millions of dollars a year, teaching men how to get women to approach them. Let's stand up and put your hands together for John Alanis. Oh, crowd goes wild, everything like that. So, guy gets on stage, and John Alanis gets on stage and he says, notice that I didn't say how to pick up women, he said. I show them, this is quotes from what John was saying, I show them how to get women to come to them. Big difference. Now, how many of you here would like to have customers come to you? He asked. So ultimately, Russell's at this event that is all about different business owners and everything like that, and they have this relationship coach come up that specializes in getting women to come up to men. And what he's doing is first just laying the groundwork and understanding. Look, I might not be all on this business stuff, but we have so much more in common than you think. Because imagine if I can do this with men, what if I could have your ideal customers come directly to you in order to get and inquire about your product? And ultimately what John says here is what is needed in order to do this is to craft an attractive character. And throughout the entire rest of this chapter, he talks about, Russell talks about once again, he's sharing a story, but he talks about the importance of the attractive character. So he gives an example from he says, his favorite social influencers, Jenna Kutcher. And what Jenna said is, a brand is the image and personality the business applies to its offers. End quote. The value ladder contains all your offers, but the attractive character is the brand that you apply to the offers to increase their value even more. So ultimately within this book, Russell is just continuing to build foundation that builds upon foundation, 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 so on and so forth. So that right there is the attractive character. I'm going to be putting up a graphic on your screen here. This is the attractive character and the elements of the attractive character that Russell talks about. As you can see in the top left corner, we have the elements. Top right hand corner, we have the identity, and then towards the bottom, we have the storylines. So ultimately, throughout the entire rest of this chapter, Russell goes through each one of these sections and in depth goes through each bullet point as well to give further explanation on each one of them are. So ultimately, just to briefly highlight over elements, just understanding who you are, your backstory, what parables, because we talked about Russell teaches through parables or stories. So what are the parables you're going to teach through? What are some of your character flaws? He talks about, look, nobody's perfect. So if there's a perfect person or you portray yourself as a perfect person, nobody's going to follow you because nobody's perfect. They have to have some sort of way of relating to you, which is through your character flaws. And then lastly, polarity. Boring is equal to broke. Ultimately, you can't please everyone because then you're not going to have anyone that's going to actually follow you because you're just going to be like the middle bland person. Following along is identity. So there are 4 different types of identity. You have the leader, the adventurer and crusader, reporter, and reluctant hero. He talks about how you have to go ahead and pick one of them at the time to go ahead and choose, and that is kind of what you follow. And then lastly, on your storylines, he talks about a couple of different storylines that you can utilize within it. So ultimately, it's how do you share your message. And it's not like you can only use one of them. You can use a multitude of different ones. But for example, one of them, as you can see in the graphic, is us versus them. So it's us, we collectively as a group, and them, they're against us. They're wanting to keep us down. They're not wanting us to achieve it, and it's like us versus them. That's one example. And that's what he discusses. One actually very powerful thing that he talks about inside of this attractive character is a friend of his who is a chiropractor. Russell asked him, hey, why are you a chiropractor? He said, hey, well, I get paid well and I get Fridays off, like jokingly, but Russell could tell he's just kind of through BS. After a little bit of digging, Russell gets to the point that he gets the truth of it. So to summarize this entire paragraph, this guy's wife ended up getting in a bad accident, was in so much pain, they went to doctor and tried all these different methods, and ultimately his wife was still in pain, and he just felt so bad seeing his wife in so much pain. They eventually are persuaded to go to a chiropractor, and within minutes, the chiropractor helps relieve the pain from his wife, and ever since that moment onward, this guy said, I need to do what this chiropractor is doing, and I want to bring this level of relief and comfort to people all around the world. So that is what made him switch from what he was doing, which he was actually studying to be a dentist, into that. What's my point behind it? Imagine how powerful it is if you are sharing a story like that with your entire audience. So that ultimately is everything. Once again, I've been talking about it. Russell speaks about throughout the entire thing. One of the big points that Russell says here is attractive characters speak in parables. The best teachers in the world speak in parables. So that's everything there. Continuing along, next point, he discusses attractive characters share their character flaws. As we discussed, I can continue going through kind of in-depth all of this. I've briefly touched upon it. I'm going to put this graphic on the screen one more time for you. But they're all the different elements, identity, and storylines of the attractive character throughout the entire rest of this chapter. What Russell does is he continues to explain what I highlighted for you at the very beginning. As you continue at the very end of the chapter, he also gives some examples of other people within his community that have filled this out, so you kind of have an understanding of what a completed one looks like. Here they are, and then at the very end he also gives you one that you can go ahead and fill out. This is just where I finished, and I need to go ahead and fill this out. But yeah, so I know obviously this is a little bit of a longer form video. Ultimately, what I just want to do, as I said before, I just want to share the information as I'm going through it. Hopefully this is helpful to you. If it is, if you could just let me know by liking and commenting, just so I'm aware of if this is valuable or if I should change something. I would greatly appreciate if there's something that you would recommend in order to make this better for you guys. And ultimately, I hope that you enjoyed this, and we'll see you in the next one.